Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. In a few of my older videos, I talked about Disney taking the Marvel characters and making them into the equivalent of Disney princesses. Because what Disney does with their Disney princesses is they put out a big movie that makes a connection between these young girls and these characters. And then Disney takes that connection and manipulates it so that these young girls and their parents buy this junk merchandise that Disney puts out, the equivalent of a $1 slave labor t-shirt that they then sell for $20 to $25. And so they use this emotional tie, they manipulate it so that they can get these children to buy this merchandise which has the character's face just slapped on it in some way, shape, or form. This is the exact same thing that they are doing with Marvel and their characters right now, but for boys. And I do indeed think that this is what is going on. But there is an additional layer to it that I just ran across that I never really considered before. And it's the fact that Disney is not only producing this cheap merchandise for people to snatch up at these ridiculous prices, but what they are also trying to do is to commodify fandom itself. That is to say, they want to get people to pay them to be fans of these characters. And in that way, Disney and Marvel really don't have to produce any product at all, let alone a product with substance. And if you look at things that way, you can begin to understand a lot of what is going on over at Marvel Comics. Now, first off, I'll have to say that commodification of fandom is not something that is new by any stretch of the imagination. Disney did this with the Mickey Mouse Club a long time ago. And before that, there were radio plays that had their own fan clubs. Fan clubs that are official fan clubs that you pay to be a member of is the commodification of the fandom itself. But in those older forms, I would say it was part to keep these people connected to this medium, to this character, to whatever it is they're trying to sell them, and sell them this fandom at the same time. But again, when you have Disney, which is this giant corporation now, I would say they took this idea and they put it on steroids. And they want to make an entire industry out of producing nothing at all, but having people pay for it just to be fans. Now, to look at this, I got to go back and look at Marvel as a lifestyle brand. Now, I talked about this in a number of videos, so I'm only going to go over it briefly here. So Marvel last year, about a year and a half ago, declared themselves to be a lifestyle brand. And when that happened, a lot of people started to talk about the fact that Marvel's going to change what they produce. But lifestyle branding has really nothing to do with what you produce. It has more to do with how you advertise the products that you do produce already. And so what lifestyle branding is, well, briefly again, let's say you are a company that produces running shoes. If you want to lifestyle brand, instead of taking your money and putting it into traditional advertising, what you do is you set up booths at, let's say, marathons, where you have your logo all over the place, and you give out water to the people that are in the marathon. And you don't ask for anything for it. You do it seemingly just as an act of goodwill. But what it is, really, is an advertising that plays right into the person's life and their lifestyle. And so this is lifestyle branding. You give something out to your customers so that they think that you are part of this community and you give back to this community, and therefore they wish to give back to you when it comes time for you to buy a product. Now, the thing about lifestyle branding is that the way that it works is you have to target a subculture, a subsection of the population. You can't use it as traditional advertising as a blanket shotgun approach to everybody. It doesn't work that way. You have to pick a subsection, a subcategory of the population which you wish to target before you actually begin your lifestyle branding. So for the running shoe company, it will be people who are athletic, people who run marathons and the like. If you are someone who produces motorcycles, it would be people who are into motorcycles. And if you're Marvel, what exactly would be that subsection of the population that you want to appeal to? Now, first, you have to realize that Marvel has two different arms under Disney. They have Marvel Studios, which deals with the movies and everything that has to go with the movies, and it has Marvel Entertainment. And Marvel Entertainment deals with the comic books, the television shows, and the merchandise which goes with the like. So the company that declared itself a lifestyle brand was Marvel Entertainment, not Marvel Studios. So what do you think that Marvel Entertainment saw as their subculture, as their subcategory of the bigger culture that they were targeting with their lifestyle branding? Now, most people would automatically think, well, it would be comic book fans, right? Because they're a subculture. But no, I would emphatically say no. When they declared themselves a lifestyle brand, I went to their Twitter, and I did an entire video about this about a year ago. And when I looked on their Twitter, which I would say is the major place where they promote their products, you looked at it and you would see maybe 10% of their tweets were about comics, at best. So it was really obvious that they weren't targeting the subculture of comic book fans. They simply weren't. So there must have been a different subculture. Now, previously, I had thought and I had stated that what I saw this subculture that they were targeting as being was your quote-unquote progressive-minded individuals, your SJWs and the like. But I wish to amend that statement right here and say that, yes, they are targeting those kinds of people, but that's not their chosen subsection of the population. I think their chosen subsection of the population is Marvel fans. Now, I think that's much too broad in order to work with lifestyle branding, but I would say that is who they have chosen as their subsection of the population. Marvel fans in general, of anything Marvel. Now, the thing is that the whole progressive mindset plays right into who they have chosen as their subsection that they wish to be targeting with this lifestyle branding. And it does so as follows. You have Marvel. And you're trying to sell to a whole bunch of different kinds of people who are Marvel fans through a whole bunch of different kinds of mediums. And so you have to find something that ties all of them together, or at the very least, which you can tie them all together with. So automatically, you would have to go to something very, very basic. Now, my first thought would be, well, that would be story, right? Because you have comics, they have a story. You have television shows, they have stories. You have all of these other kinds of books and trade paperbacks, they all have stories. Wouldn't that common thing that they tie everything together be story? But I would say no, after looking at it more deeply, because you have a whole lot of other merchandise, and I do mean a whole lot of other merchandise, which has nothing to do with story at all. So I think that what they are tying all of this merchandise together with, including the stories that are in the comics and are in the shows, is your quote-unquote progressive mindset. That is the underlying message that they want to put in with each and every one of their mediums, with each and every one of their products, is this progressive mindset. Now, I suppose some people might see that as an outrageous claim. So I will give you a few examples of how this is indeed the case. So example number one would be G. Willow Wilson. Now, G. Willow Wilson was one of the major writers for Marvel up until recently. And when she did an interview for the New York Times, which I covered in one of my videos, she talked about what she saw her job as being. Well, what did she see her job as being? She thought her job was to change the world. She said quite specifically that she bought into the mindset that artists can change the world, and that's what she wanted to do. Well, how would she change the world? Well, she would change the world through promoting certain kinds of ideas. And what kinds of ideas were those? Well, we'll get to that in just one second, because she hit a point where she thought to herself, okay, I have to change what I think my job is and how I do my job. And what was that point? Well, that point was when progressive ideas had to go into retreat when Donald Trump won the presidency. After that point, she saw her job as being something different. Because she saw these progressive ideas in retreat, she saw her job as being a bulwark, a stronghold for these progressive leaders to retreat to, where she could, in her words, give them hope fuel, and so arm them again, so that when it comes time for them to take back the territory that they have lost, she can push them back out there, and they can put these progressive ideas back into the territories which they have lost. This is what she thought her entire job revolved around. Both the old idea and the new idea of what she thought her job was about, her entire job was to promote these, quote-unquote, progressive ideas. It wasn't to make a good story so that they could sell it as a product. It wasn't to make a good story as to make good art. No, it was to use story as a vehicle to promote these ideas, these progressive ideas that she wanted to change the world with. So, example number two would be Court Lane. He is a VP at Marvel, the VP of family entertainment and animation. And when he was talking about the Marvel Rising animated series and animated movie that came on the Disney Channel, he had said that they showed it to these test audiences of girls. And these test audiences of girls took in the message that was in these shows to the extent that they reflected it back at him. And when that happened, he said quite specifically that he felt his job was done. He said to himself, I can retire now. My job is complete. So again, what does he see his entire job as revolving around? Is it to produce a story as a product that will sell? No. Is it to produce a story as a piece of art? No. It's to use a story as a vehicle to promote these ideas. Because once this test audience of girls took in the ideas presented to them so much that they could reflect it back, he thought his job was done. Example number 3 would be Sana Amanat, when she was talking at one of the Comic-Cons last year about characters that simply don't sell comics. She was saying that, well, they're still characters that we're going to promote because they will sell in the trades. And when she started to talk about that, she let loose a little bit of information. She let loose the information that these trades were going to be sold to parents groups and library associations. And those parents groups and library associations, how do they buy these trade paperbacks? Well, she specifically said that they buy it on the concept. So these library associations and these parent associations, they don't buy these trade paperbacks on the story itself because they don't really see the story. They buy it on the concept of the story. So you promote to these library associations and parent associations the idea of America Chavez, which specifically she was talking about. You have this Latino, gay, powerful woman, and so that's the concept. You sell them the concept, not the story itself. You have Kamala Khan, who is a Pakistani, Muslim, strong, teenage girl. You sell them that concept. You don't sell them the story. So again, it is the message behind the story that is important, not the story itself. And so right from the mouth of the second in command at Marvel Comics, you can see that they are producing these stories not so that the stories themselves sell, but that the concept behind the story sells. And the second thing that I want to concentrate on is the fact that why did they choose this kind of idea, this kind of ideology, this kind of concept to go behind their story? Because they didn't need to choose this progressive concept. They could have chosen something else. Well, why did they choose this one particular? Well, I went over that in a video last week. Because this kind of ideology is based specifically on emotion. It's based on the shutting down of your rational mind. And that's exactly what helps them sell their products even more. Because they want emotional buyers to be hyper emotional, connected to these characters in a hyper emotional way. And so instead of actually putting substance behind their product, all they have to do is put some emotion behind their product, and they can get these people to snatch it up. Now, when we get to this point, you can see that it's an easy step to go from this, where you make cheap merchandise for your audience to buy because it has some vague emotional connection with these characters that they saw once upon the screen, to a point where you are selling these people the concept of being a fan, and they will simply fork over their money for no product at all. And this is something that I now see going on with Marvel. It may have been going on for a while, but it simply came into my line of vision recently. And I'll give you 2 examples of this. One that I had ran across about a year ago, but I really didn't realize what it was. What it was, well, it was this website. And it was promoting fan fiction in the way that you got all of these companies, not just Marvel and not just Disney, but a whole bunch of different companies with a whole bunch of different kinds of characters. You have these companies. They said, okay, we're all going to take our characters or some of our characters and license them to this blanket corporation who will allow people to write fan fiction about them. So you have this list of approved characters on this website, some of them being Marvel characters. And so you can write fan fiction based upon these Marvel characters. And the thing is that once you write that fan fiction, you can submit it to this website and they will then publish it for you. That is to say, they will signal boost it on their website, not actually publish it in a physical copy, but on their website. And this will take your little fan fiction and put it out to more people than you could ever get to on your own website or Twitter or Facebook or anything else. But there's a little catch, of course, and the catch is this. If you write a piece of fan fiction that has these approved characters within it, and you give it to this website so that they publish it on their website so that a whole bunch of people read it, what happens? Well, you forfeit all rights to that story at all. So let's say you wrote a fan fiction story about these Marvel characters that are on the approved list, and you gave it to the website so that they could publish it, and a whole bunch of people read it. Well, if Marvel then wants to take your story, the entire thing even, and make a comic or a movie or a television show about it, you have no rights to it whatsoever, because they own everything. So this would be one example of taking fandom and using it to your profit as a company. You're not actually selling a product to these people. You're taking their fandom itself and saying, we're going to take your fandom and turn it into a profit. But to my mind, that would be something small. I ran into something which seems to me to be a much more prominent example of this. And it is the fact that Marvel has now produced these plays, which they are selling to high schools that contain Marvel characters so that these high schools can produce these plays. They are one-act plays, and so far they've only produced 3. One deals with the character of teenage Thor, another deals with Squirrel Girl, and the third, I'm sure you probably already guessed, deals with Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. And I'm going to concentrate on the Kamala Khan Miss Marvel one, because I would say it is the one that is the most telling. This entire play is centered around the fact that Kamala Khan, who originally wrote fan fiction about Captain Marvel in the actual comic books, that's why she loved Captain Marvel so much, in this play what she is doing is she begins to write fan fiction for herself, that is to say Miss Marvel, to try to promote herself as a hero. That's what the play is about. But I want to read you some of these casting notes that go along with the play, first of all. These plays, by the way, are called Marvel Spotlight. So it says, Marvel Spotlight aims to create compelling plays with teenage protagonists who tackle real-world problems in a diverse society. Licensees are encouraged to approach casting in a way that values equal representation and inclusion while promoting conversation and respect. For those characters marked as any gender, the costume of the character should reflect the gender identity of the performer. Now that was a blanket statement that was on all of the plays, but there's one specific for Miss Marvel, and it goes like this. Every effort should be made so that Kamala and Ami, who is Kamala's mother, who are Pakistani Americans in this play and in the comics, are played by performers of color. For Ami in particular, it is important that she not become a caricature. If the actor and director are not familiar with a South Asian accent, the role should be performed without any attempt at an, quote, authentic accent. The important thing is for the mother-daughter relationship to come through clearly in performance. All other roles are open to performers of any ethnicity. The director and cast are encouraged to read at least Miss Marvel, Volume 1, called No Normal, of the comics to gain a sense of how these characters appear on the page, which could be a starting point for thinking about casting. Now this whole thing just encapsulates what I've been saying. You see here that the backdrop of this entire story is this progressive ideology. You can also see that they are encouraging people to buy the Miss Marvel trade paperback Volume 1 in order to prepare for this role. And at the same time, you have to pay in order to perform this play. How much do you have to pay? Well, first of all, you have to buy the scripts, which are somewhere between $5 and $15, depending on whether or not you need a hard copy. But in order to perform the play itself, you have to pay a licensing fee to Marvel of $75 to perform one play, $125 if you wish to perform 2. Now, I'm sure this is perfectly normal with any play that you have to pay some licensing fee to someone, but when you combine all of this with the fact that Marvel is lifestyle branding at the same time, well, what do we have here? Well, this is a clear commodification of fandom itself. What this entire thing says is that if you really think that you're a Marvel fan, what do you actually do? Well, we will allow you to advertise our product for us in some unofficial capacity, and all you have to do is pay us to do so. And of course, if you're going to advertise our product for us, you have to make sure that you get that underlying message that ties all of our products together, which is the quote-unquote progressive ideology which is at the heart of all of our products. Because, of course, we need that emotional tie. That emotional tie needs to be made so that we can sell even more. But again, what you see here is the fact that Marvel is not actually selling any real product at all. They want people to pay for something that doesn't exist, or that they already possess, which is fandom itself. And they think to themselves, well, we can easily manipulate these people. They're fans. By the way, if you don't know where the word fan comes from, it's an abbreviation of another English word. It is the abbreviation of the word fanatic, which is why I try to avoid using it. So really, what Marvel is trying to do with its characters is the same thing that Disney has done with their characters for a long time. They want to take these fans, who they know are fanatical about their characters, and they want them to fork over money just for being a fan. That way they can produce not just garbage merchandise, so that they can sell at a very marked up price, but they can sell the idea of fandom itself, which takes nothing for them to produce, and they don't actually give you anything, but they're making money off of. And this is the exact reason why in every one of my videos, I have a list in the link in the description for indie comics. Because if you want anything of substance, you're going to have to go somewhere else than Marvel and DC. You might get an odd one here or there, but really, there is no concentration on story whatsoever. If you look at all the things that I just said, where is story, let alone a good story, in any of this? It is buried underneath this mountain of advertising. It's buried underneath this mountain of commodification of these characters and their likenesses and their ideas and the fandom itself. Because why in the world would Marvel continue to spend its resources trying to sell the product of a good story when they can sell the idea of fandom itself because it has an emotional connection somewhere out there to the idea of a good story? So, if I've given you anything new to think about, hit like, hit the shield in the lower right hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about all this. Alright, I'll see you later. Bye.